Well, let's talk about this with Professor Anthony Glees. He's Professor at the Centre for Security and Intelligence Studies at the University of Buckingham and joins us now. Good morning to you, Anthony.
Good morning.
Thank you very
Julia.
much indeed. Well, look, this is a long-going investigation, we understand, by the security agencies, handed over to the Met Police. It rests in February, but these three Bulgarian nationals who are facing these charges, again, these are allegations at the current time. It's still a live case, I must stress that. They are believed to have been in the country for 10 years, living in suburbia. One of the headlines in the papers today saying spies who came in from suburbia as opposed to in from the cold. How surprised are you that these arrests have been made, and that, leaving aside the specifics of this case, that there might be Russian sleeper cells in this country?
Well, I'm not surprised. I'm absolutely not surprised. I think the Russian threat has been extremely serious. The Russian threat facing this country has been extremely serious. I'm not surprised about it. It's very early days. We can't be sure what these people were up to. We can't actually be sure whether they were Bulgarians or not. A third of Bulgarians regard themselves as Russians. So it's perfectly possible that actually they are Russians and not Bulgarians, but on Bulgarian passports, apparently, although they have 19 different passports. We don't really know who these people are. We don't know why that chap is in Great Yarmouth. And as for Harrow, yes, well, it's near places, but they wanted to travel around Europe. So for me, the big issue, and that's why this should be of serious concern, is first of all, that if they are Bulgarians, the Russians are using members of the European Union to act as their agents in the UK. They're not doing what they were previously doing, sending Russians over to the UK. Yeah. So they appear to be recruiting, these people are Bulgarians, people who are EU members, who we would regard as our friends, people who
can travel much more easily into the country. We spoke,
absolutely.
Well, we spoke to Chris Phillips a little bit earlier on the show, and of course you'll know him as a former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, and he's pointed out, with a huge wave of Eastern Europeans arriving in the country in the last 10, 20 years, and again, vast majority, including a member of my own family, by the way, arriving legally and with good intention to make a better life for themselves. But of course that does provide easy cover for people with poor bad intentions, whether it's organised criminals, whether it's terrorists, or whether it is foreign spies. But when we see stories like this, I mean, that headline, the spies who came in from suburbia, these echoes of the John le Carré novels, even the TV series The Americans, which I absolutely loved, I think on Amazon. I think it was a fantastic story about two Russians brought together to pretend to be a married couple. They even had children, living in suburbs of Washington DC and carrying out murders and espionage and goodness knows what. I mean, these are extraordinary stories, but we saw the real-life story of Anna Chapman in Washington. She was uncovered in 2010, a Russian spy, very glamorous, now a huge star on Russian TV. These people do exist, whether or not this case, it turns out to be the real thing or not. Again, still a live case. This does actually happen. It's not just the stuff of Hollywood.
Well, absolutely so. But, Julia, that is also a very serious issue. You know it happens. I know it happens. People of this country know it happens. Yet we know that in 2020, MI5 spent only 3% of its time acting against foreign espionage agents. And we also know that the oversight of our intelligence agencies by the Parliamentary Intelligence and Security Committee is not functioning properly. They published a report on Russia, and they made the point that the Prime Minister doesn't turn up to meet with them, the agency heads don't turn up to meet them. The sort of access they once had, they don't have. Yeah. So we've got MI5, world-class security service, but it spends 90% of its time roughly on terrorism, on Islamist and right-wing terrorism. Yet espionage is a major threat. And the big difference between now and the Soviet era is that, yes, we had spies, both Russian spies run by Russian officers in the Soviet embassy in Kensington, and many British agents, and always have had, people who spied for Russia out of conviction and ideology. But since Putin came along, I don't think many Brits have any, interest in his ideology. They do have interest in his money. Yeah. And what Putin has done has been to recruit people on the basis that he will give them cash for doing
I prefer those people rather than the zealots, the ideological zealots, because I think they're probably, at least we could bribe them back the other way around. I mean, there is an element where we could clutch our pearls and say, oh, isn't it awful that Russia, if they are doing this, I've got spies in this country. America does it, we do it, every Western state does it as well. We do it. It's part of our national security. It's part of how we deal with things. We do it with cyber stuff online, and we do it with real spies. We will have agents in Russia as well. So
we hope.
Yeah, good point. I hope we do have. Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
We are an open society, and particularly they're beginning to use people who aren't Russian to establish spy networks in the UK. That is a very serious thing. And it could be that with this announcement, MI5 wants to signal to us that they are aware that these communities of Eastern Europeans could be a threat to us. And they also want to tell Eastern Europeans to be very careful, because one of the people, the woman involved here who was arrested, is said to have run a social media platform to bring Bulgarians in the UK together. Now, why would you do that? Because it would give you an opportunity to recruit amongst Bulgarians, not Russians, Bulgarians, recruit them to keep their eyes open and pass on to Putin whatever you wanted. But the bottom line is these people are traitors, and they should be treated as traitors in conceptual terms, even if in national security terms they're Bulgarians or what have you. They do us down.
If it is the case, if they do go to trial and if they are found guilty, we do need to keep remembering that. Anthony Glees, a professor in intelligence studies, thank you so much for that.